Hello everyone, I am Sword Caliburn 687, and today I would talk about Sonic X Shadow Generations. If you guys want to support this video, smash that like button and subscribe. Without further ado, let's begin the video. Sonic X Shadow Generations, it is a really fun Sonic game, and I would want more from this game. What people want for a Sonic X Shadow Generations DLC, it is more boss fights and more stages. The boss fight that a lot of Sonic fans really want, it is Infinite. Infinite is the boss fight that a lot of Sonic fans wanted in Generations, but he wasn't in the game. There were a lot of Sonic fans that wanted an Infinite boss fight for Shadow, but he's also Sonic's boss fights too. This is a cool idea I have come up with. Why not an Infinite DLC? Sonic Generations having an Infinite DLC, it would be a good idea. Sega should take some notes and some inspirations from Sonic Forces Overclocked, and if it's done right, it would be cool. I feel like that an Infinite DLC for Sonic X Shadow Generations, it could be possible, all because of Null Space. Null Space wasn't explored in Sonic Forces, and it was a letdown. I have seen somebody did a Sonic Forces mod with Shadow, and it was cool. This Sonic Forces mod, it was created by Nuts, and it is a really fun mod. This Sonic Forces mod, it takes voice clips of Shadow in a Green Hill Zone in Sonic Forces. Infinite is warping reality in Shadow's mind, and it does look cool. When Infinite is altering Shadow's mind, he's taking Shadow to different locations from his past. One part of the mod that I like is when Shadow goes into Shadow the Hedgehog, and he remembers the events of racing Sonic, which is cool. This Sonic Forces mod wasn't finished by Nux, and it has a few buggy issues. You can call this mod the original Shadow Generations, all because it was made before Sega announced it. Even though this mod is not created by Sonic Team, it is a really cool mod. Nuts' Null Space mod to Sonic Forces, it is 6 years old. If Sonic Team takes some inspirations from Nuts' Null Space mod, it would be cool. Sega can easily make a sequel to Sonic Generations and makes Infinite the main villain, and it would be awesome. Having a sequel to Generations when Infinite's the main villain, it could be really cool, but I don't think it would happen. The first issue is Infinite as a character. There is a lot of Sonic fans that don't like Infinite as a character because of Forces. Sonic Forces is the most hated recent Sonic game for majority of Sonic fans. Infinite's reception is not well received for a lot of Sonic fans, and a lot of Sonic fans want him to be redeemed as a character. Sonic Team can experiment and try new things with Infinite as a character in Generations. If a DLC with Infinite does well, Sonic Team might put him in more games, and it would be cool. A story DLC for Generations, it would make the game longer, and more people would buy Generations. Sega should take some notes for doing DLC from Bandai. Bandai makes a lot of money from doing DLC in their Dragon Ball games and Tales of Arise Beyond the Dawn. If a story DLC pack for Generations costs $60 and we can get 12 more levels, it would be cool. Maybe Sega can make this DLC into a separate game, like the Miles Morales DLC for Spider-Man PS4, and it would be cool. Now you guys can kinda understand why an Infinite DLC would work in Sonic X Shadow Generations, and it would be cool. Before I talk about stages I would want in Sonic X Shadow Generations with an Infinite DLC, I do have to talk about Infinite as a character. I do have to talk about Sonic Forces' story and why it failed Infinite as a character. With me trying to understand Infinite's character, I do have to do research with the stories that he was in. I have to replay Sonic Forces' story, and man, this story's a mess. Sonic Forces' story doesn't start at the game, but it started from the IDW comic books. Eggman finds the Phantom Ruby in his base, and he sees visions of him taking over the world. This Phantom Ruby, it's supposed to be the same one from Sonic Mania, so if you played that game, I don't need to tell you. When Eggman found the Phantom Ruby, the captain of the Jackal Squad found Eggman and attacked his base. The reason why the Jackal Squad attacks Eggman's base, so they can steal all of Eggman's personal belongings and sell it to a market. It is kinda obvious who the captain of the Jackal Squad is. It is Infinite. Before he was Infinite, he was captain of the Jackal Squad, and he attacked Dr. Eggman. Before Infinite attacks Dr. Eggman, he attacks the Phantom Ruby and sees a vision. Infinite sees the vision of the Phantom Ruby of the whole world being destroyed. The captain of the Jackal Squad teams up with Eggman so he can change the world on how he sees it. It is heavily implied that Infinite wants to create a world full of chaos and destruction, and man, this is dark. This is a really cool comic book, but the problem with the comic book, this version of Infinite doesn't match the one from the game. Let's just transition into Infinite's origins from the Forces game, and it is very inconsistent. Rouge gets reports from an intel or spy agency that she's working for. Who she's working for, I don't care. Sonic Forces never really explains who Rouge is working for, and it doesn't matter in the story. Rouge tells Shadow to investigate Eggman's secret base, all because Eggman is planning something. Does Sonic Team make this a cutscene? No. This is some random bad Star Fox text box dialogue. Shadow and Omega investigate Eggman's secret base, and what happens to Omega? He is defeated by Infinite. There is inconsistencies in the Sonic Forces game and comic book. Omega loses to Infinite in Sunset Heights in the game of Forces, but in the Forces comic book, it is literally in Green Hills. Infinite has a grudge against Shadow, but Shadow doesn't know who he is. The game flashbacks to the past a couple months ago, and Shadow's trying to investigate Eggman's secret base. Why he's there, I don't know. I would assume that Shadow's investigating Eggman's secret base, all because he got intel from somebody about Eggman's top secret weapon. I would just leave it at that, all because Eggman doesn't want Shadow to destroy all of his research on the Phantom Ruby. When Shadow is trying to investigate Eggman's secret base, he kills the Jackal Squad. Why does Shadow kill them? I don't know. Sonic Forces doesn't explain why. Shadow didn't kill all the members of the Jackal Squad, and there's only one left. Eggman was angry at the captain of the Jackal Squad for not protecting the base. Eggman tells the captain of the Jackal Squad that his Jackal Squad is useless. Go clean up their mess. Angry and wants revenge, the captain of the Jackal Squad faces Shadow by himself and ultimately loses. After Shadow beats the captain of the Jackal Squad, he says this to him. Shadow says that the captain of the Jackal Squad is worthless, and do not show your pathetic face again. Because Shadow says these harsh words to the captain of the Jackal Squad, he has a total meltdown. The captain hates being weak, and he hates that Shadow mocked him. After the captain of the Jackal Squad lost to Shadow, he gets experimented on by Dr.Eggman. After being experimented on by Dr. Eggman, the captain of the Jackal Squad becomes stronger. The captain of the Jackal Squad hates his old self for being weak. Because of that, he changed his name to Infinite. Infinite faces off against Shadow in Green Hill Zone, and Shadow lost to Infinite. Infinite mocks Shadow for being weak, and because of that, he doesn't see Shadow as a challenge anymore. Infinite lets Shadow live, and he sets his sights on somebody else. The character that Infinite sets his sights on, it is Sonic, and this is how the game events happened in Sonic Forces. With me describing Infinite's backstory in Sonic Forces, it sounds like a good idea on paper, but it's not well executed. I would talk about the most hated scene in Sonic Forces and why people hate this scene. The most hated scene in Sonic Forces, it is the Mystic Jungle cutscene. The reason why a lot of Sonic fans hate this scene, all because Shadow is a jerk to Infinite, and he lets Infinite go. Why? Shadow has killed the Jackal Squad in a flashback like a couple of minutes ago, and he lets the captain of the Jackal Squad go. It doesn't make any sense. There is a lot of things that people are angry about in Sonic Forces, like Tails being sidelined and making him a scaredy cat. You can tell that Sonic Forces' story is rushed, and there's a lot of things that are missing. A lot of Sonic fans joke about Infinite not being weak, and Infinite seems like an edgelord. The problem with this scene, Infinite says that I am not weak so many times. Sonic fans made a joke about this scene and even memes it. Sonic Team wanted this scene with Infinite to be serious, but this scene feels like a joke. Sega and Sonic Team should have looked at this scene and reduced the amounts of times when Infinite says it. The other problem with Infinite with so many Sonic fans that he lets characters live, but I'm fine with that. I feel like Sega was trying to replicate Cell from DBZ, and if Sega leaned on Infinite's arrogance, it could have been interesting. I wish that Infinite's arrogance could have been explored more, but the problem with Forces, it doesn't explore Infinite's character. When Sonic defeated Infinite, he completely disappears in the story, and Dr. Eggman absorbs his Phantom Ruby. There is a lot of missed potential with Infinite, and it starts with his concept art. With Infinite's concept art, there is a lot of missed potential with his character that is not in Forces. One of Infinite's first designs, he was originally supposed to be a ghost. With Infinite's first design, I don't think that the Phantom Ruby existed, but it was all Infinite's abilities. I would give this version of Infinite a name. I would call him Phantom the Ghost. The second part of Infinite's concept art, he was originally supposed to be an Oni. Oni in Japanese means demon or ogre. Onis can be demons or yokai in Japanese folklore, and what a yokai is, it is pretty much like a spirit or a ghost in Japan. What do Onis represent in Japanese folklore? They represent the worst aspects of humanity and hates humanity. Onis consume humans and are really evil monsters. Why Infinite is an Oni, it is important, all because it is tied to Sonic Lost World. I would tell you guys all the Deadly Six in Sonic Lost World are all Onis. Why a lot of Sonic fans wouldn't recognize this? All because Sonic Lost World had a cartoony art style. Onis doesn't have to be two-horned monsters. There are some that has many horns, and some that has no horns. There are some Onis that don't look like monsters, and some that look humanoid. For any anime fans that watch Demon Slayers, Demon Slayer's demons are based on Onis. The Demon Slayer's Onis gets killed in sunlight, and it is not accurate to the folklore. Demon Slayer has changed some of the lore on their own versions of Onis, but they keep the whole idea of Onis intact. The Deadly Six looks like ripoffs from Monsters, Inc. or even Pokemon. This makes me wonder what the heck happened to Sonic Forces' story, and why the game is like this. I think that Sonic Forces was going to be Sonic Lost World 2, and because Sonic Lost World didn't sold that well, it was a flop. I think the reason why Sonic Forces' story is rushed, all because the game ran out of budget. I think that Sonic Boom and Sonic Lost World were the reasons why Sega didn't give Sonic Team enough budget for Forces. Since both of these games lost a lot of money for Sega, Sega must have cut the budget for Forces. Sonic Lost World only sold like 700,000 copies, while Rise of Lyric and Shattered Crystal, they only sold like 600,000 copies. The Sonic Boom TV show and the marketing aspect was a failure, so Sega probably had no choice but to cut the budget from Forces. I know that there's some people that like the Sonic Boom TV show, but after season 1, the show didn't do that well in ratings. Sega wanted Sonic Boom Sonic to be American Sonic, and because that flopped, it didn't do well. Sega probably did cut the budget for Forces, and Forces development, it must have been a nightmare for Sonic Team. If Sonic Boom did that well, Sonic Forces would have not turned into a bad game. Man, this makes me wonder if there are concept arts of Sonic Lost World 2, but that is a mystery. Let's get back on talking about Infinite's concept art with the Deadly Six. The reason why I think that Zavok talked out of any Infinite illusions, it is probably because in the older script, that was actually Zavok. The Deadly Six was probably going to be the Deadly Seven, but that probably got changed. If you compare Infinite's older design compared to the Deadly Six, it does look similar. The Deadly Six and Infinite's older design, they both have stripe patterns. Infinite Stripes does look a bit chaotic, and I think that is the point. Maybe Infinite's chaotic stripes does signify that he is stronger than the Deadly Six, or more powerful. The other parts of Infinite's concept art that I would talk about, it would be his Jackal design. I would skip over Infinite's bowl design, all because it isn't important to this video. The character that I think that Infinite's design is based on, he is based on Beerus. I think that one of Infinite's design is based on Beerus, and Sega wanted to have the same impact like Beerus. Think about it like this: a character that is more powerful than the main character, and then beats the main character. Beerus has defeated Goku in his Super Saiyan form, and then the Phantom Ruby separates Classic Sonic from his Super transformation. This powerful character sees the other character as a nuisance, and easily toys with them. Infinite's personality is not Beerus, but I think that's a character that's easily toys with the main character, all because that character isn't strong enough to beat that character. Infinite could have worked. If Infinite negated Super Sonic, one of Sonic's strongest transformations, Infinite could have been a cool character. Sega didn't want the Beerus inspiration for Infinite's character design to be obvious, so they based it on other things. I would ask you guys this: do you know why Infinite is a jackal? And I would tell you. Infinite's design, he is based on the Egyptian god Anubis. Anubis is the Egyptian god of mummification, and the protector of the tombs of the pharaoh, and the protector of the afterlife. Anubis has an ability that can judge somebody's soul by a scale, and if the soul's not worthy, this would happen. If the soul weighs heavier than a feather, it would be eaten by a mit, which is a crocodile Egyptian god. It would make sense why Infinite is judging you as a character, and if he has a judgment ability, it would be awesome. What all of these concept arts tell me about Infinite? A lot of these deities, monsters, or spirits are associated with the afterlife. A lot of these monsters, deities, and spirits, they're not real and they're folklore. A definition of a phantom can mean a ghost, but there is another meaning for a phantom. The other meaning of a phantom is the figment of the imagination. Let me read you the Merriam-Webster's Dictionary of a Phantom. A representation of something abstract, ideal, or incorporeal. A lot of psychologists say that dreams are abstract in the human mind. The interpretation of somebody's dream or somebody's mind, it can be different depending on the person. I know you guys are wondering, Sword Caliburn 687, how does this connect to Infinite? If you piece together Infinite's concept, art, and dialogue, Infinite isn't real. What if I told you that Infinite's jackal form isn't the real Infinite? What if I told you that this Phantom Ruby is the real Infinite? There is a dialogue in Sonic Forces that Sega forgot to cut out, and it is the dialogue with Tails. Tails says that Eggman created Infinite, and this dialogue is the same from the Japanese version of Sonic Forces. With the dialogue that Tails says in Sonic Forces, it would sound like that Infinite's a robot, but it is not the case. If you look at the concept art of Eggman's lab, Eggman has a bunch of Phantom Rubies. If you look at Eggman's computer screen, you see the picture of Infinite, and his whole body is see-through. Re-looking at this scene, this is supposed to be a foreshadow of who Infinite is. When Sonic and the custom character defeats Infinite, his whole body starts to disappear. And what happens when you fight all the illusions in Sonic Forces? They disappear. One of the themes of Sonic Forces, it is bringing your imagination to life, and it does make sense. Even though a dream can't feel real, it could feel real in your heart. We all wish that dreams were real, but once we wake up, the dream is gone and over. I think that the Phantom Ruby being more involved with Sonic's friends, it was probably cut out in Forces. Sonic's friends using the Phantom Ruby, it would probably make sense how they got an army and a lot of spaceships. Infinite and the custom character are supposed to mirror each other, all because they're imaginations of the Sonic characters. I found this scene of classic Sonic disappearing kinda odd, but I think that was originally supposed to be your custom character. This was a forgotten old concept of Sonic Forces, all because it was cut out, and it does make sense. The avatar is supposed to be parts of your creation, and Sonic Team wanted that to be canon. If you look at the original trailer with your custom character, it is you creating your character. Maybe Sega wanted to do a Sonic game like Splatoon or Dragon Ball Xenoverse, but it was forced into Forces. Sonic Forces was created all because a lot of members of Sonic Team had seen Sonic fan art. Aaron Weber says in an interview that Sonic Team noticed a lot of Sonic fan characters and wants to incorporate them into the games. I would play a small clip from the interview with Sonic Forces Customization Explained, and it's from GameSpot.
It can be pretty fun watching your character run around. Yeah,
that's great. So I mean, was it the right time now? You were just like, the fans want it, and we're in a place where it makes sense to make it, to include this as an option?
Yeah, and I think Sonic Team had been kind of mulling this over for some time and kind of wanting to include something like this. And the opportunity came up, and with the next gen hardware, it made a lot of sense to kind of add this in and to see what people thought. And based on the reaction we've seen so far, there's a lot of very excited people, but I think the cool thing about it really is that you don't have to necessarily be what I would call a super fan to appreciate the character creator. You don't have to be the person, on DeviantArt posting your fan art every day to like it. You can take it seriously. You can just be really silly with it. It's totally up to you.
Yeah.
With the idea of incorporating dreams and your imagination into a game, that is not new for Sonic Team, all because they worked on Nights. The custom character is created from the good thoughts of the player that's created them, while Infinite, he is created from the bad thoughts of Eggman wanting to get revenge from Sonic and friends. And Infinite is nothing more than Eggman's hatred for Sonic and friends, and his malice. I might be wrong in my theory that the custom character in Infinite might be linked, but it is fun to speculate. I know you guys are wondering, Sword Caliburn 687, isn't the Phantom Ruby first showed up in Sonic Mania? What if I told you that the Phantom Ruby wasn't supposed to be in Sonic Mania? Remember what I said earlier in the video, that this game took way longer to develop, more than Sonic Mania. The reason why I think that Sonic Mania and Sonic Forces have some connectedness in the stories, it is from the complaints from the Colors era of Sonic games. A lot of Sonic fans hated the stories for these games, like Sonic Colors, Sonic Lost World, and Sonic Generations. The biggest complaints is that the games didn't have a continuity between the games, and the stories were bad. Majority of Sonic fans has called the Colors era of Sonic games the meta era. And for a marketing perspective in Sonic Forces and Sonic Mania, Sega probably thought that they can make a lot of money for marketing both games. If Infinite's the Phantom Ruby and Sega was trying to do a connected tissue with Sonic Mania and Sonic Forces, why Sega didn't do this version of Infinite? The reason why I think that Sega didn't do this version of Infinite, it starts from the Sonic Forces comic books. Ian Flynn is a very popular writer within Sonic. He did the Archie comic books and the IDW comic books. Ian Flynn did do some of the writing for Sonic Boom Season 2, and I think that Sega noticed. A lot of Sonic fans wanted Ian Flynn to write some of the stories for the Sonic games, and that's what happened. I think that Ian Flynn's first start was trying to do a cross-promotion with the Sonic Forces comic book, but I don't think he wrote the game. Ian Flynn did wrote this version of Infinite from the Sonic Forces comic book, and that's it. There is no evidence to prove that Ian Flynn wrote this version of Infinite from the game version of Sonic Forces. I think that Sega liked this version of Infinite without the mask and wants to incorporate this version of Infinite into the Sonic games. There were some rumors going on that Ian Flynn wrote this version of Infinite from the Sonic Forces game, but I don't think it is the case. Ian Flynn might have given Sonic Team and Sega notes on how to write Infinite's backstory, and that is it. This is my personal opinion why Sonic Forces' story is rushed, all because it is. I don't think that anyone would have saved Sonic Forces' story, not even Ian Flynn. Infinite could have been a good villain if he had better character development from Sega and Sonic Team, but he didn't. Sonic Forces' story is doomed from the start, and Sonic Team was rushed into writing a story. Like, for example, there is another Sonic character that Infinite is based on, and you can probably guess what Sonic character. The Sonic character that Infinite is based on, he is based on Shadow. The similarities and parallels between both characters, there is no coincidence. Let's compare Shadow to the older concept art of Infinite. Both characters are created by their creators, and fundamentally gets used by their creators. Dr. Eggman both clones Infinite and Shadow. Eggman cloning Infinite, it is in the older version of Sonic Forces' script, and it does have a lot of parallels with Shadow. Sonic Forces was trying to do a lot of parallels with Infinite and Shadow from Sonic Adventure 2, and this is intentional. If you look at Shadow's concept art, which is Terios, Terios does have some similarities to Infinite. And what does Terios mean in Greek? It does mean making dreams come true. Both characters have darker character designs, and both have a scar. One of the writers that worked on Sonic Forces, I hope I don't pronounce his name wrong. I am sorry if I do. His name is Itaro Toyoda. Itaro Toyoda worked on the early 2000 Sonic games and Sonic Adventure 2. Sonic Forces was trying to replicate the early 2000 Sonic games, and it failed miserably. Sonic Forces' story borrows a lot of ideas from Star Wars, and the Sonic content creator that figured this out, it is Pariah. Pariah does really good Sonic videos, and he talks about the Japanese interpretation of Sonic. I would recommend you guys to watch his videos, all because they really are good. Pariah breaks down Sonic Forces' story, and he says that it is a ripoff of Star Wars, and it is hilarious. Sonic is Princess Leia / Obi-Wan, while Infinite is Darth Vader. Even some of the levels in Sonic Forces, it is inspired off of Star Wars. You have the main character starting off in a desert location, and then gets captured by the Empire. The Rebel Alliance / Resistance is fighting against the Empire, and is losing. The citizens of the galaxy or the world is losing hope until there is a new hero to save it. Who is this main character that would save the world or the galaxy? This new hero is Luke Skywalker, the custom character. This plot is Star Wars A New Hope through Return of the Jedi. The prototype name of Sonic Forces, it was supposed to be called Sonic Wars. Metropolis in Sonic Forces, it is inspired off of Eldoron. The reason why the egg pawns are white, it is a reference to the Stormtroopers. Geesh, Sega, you should stop making the plot feel like a ripoff of Star Wars. Now I know why Infinite feels inconsistent as a character. All because he is. It is not Infinite being inconsistent as a character, but Sonic Forces being inconsistent. Infinite has an inconsistent origin in the Sonic Forces game and in the comic book. There is no consistent direction of what Sonic Team wanted Infinite to be, and because Infinite has no direction of what the character would be, he feels like a mess of a character. This game feels rushed and forced. Get it, Sonic Forces? Even though Infinite feels inconsistent as a character, there is a lot of Sonic fans that want him to be redeemed. Look at Sonic fan games like Sonic Forces Overclocked. Sonic Forces Overclocked, it is a mod of Sonic Forces that improves the game. Sonic Forces Overclocked, it is a non-canon sequel to Sonic Forces, and people want Infinite to be improved as a character. There is some Sonic fans that want Sonic Forces to be remade and Infinite to be improved as a character. I hope that Sonic Team fixes Infinite's character and brings him back in future Sonic games. I am done talking about Infinite's issues as a character. Let's transition into the positive aspects of Infinite. The first thing I would talk about that is positive to Infinite, it is Infinite's design. I do like Infinite's design, and it does look cool. Infinite's design does look cool, and it does really look awesome. The whole idea of Infinite as a character, he presents himself bigger and badder than what he is, but Infinite is just an illusion. I'm saying this like in a metaphorical sense. Infinite's power comes from the Phantom Ruby, and it doesn't come from his own strength. Infinite wants to present himself without any weakness and flaws, but his biggest character flaw, he hates being weak. Infinite believes that having friends is worthless, and you should only care about yourself. You can say that Infinite's character feels similar to an other Spider-Man character, which is Mysterio. What video game character that Sega should take some inspirations for fixing Infinite? It should be Virgil. Both characters have a superiority complex for being strong, and has an inferiority complex for being weak. Virgil would do anything just to get more power, even sacrifice his own humanity. And the reason why Virgil wants to get more power, just to hide the fact that he is sad and lonely. And I think that Infinite does have similarities like Virgil. Like I said earlier, Infinite would do anything just to get power, but he's lonely in the inside. There is some dialogue in Sonic Forces that a lot of the Sonic characters knows that Infinite is sad and lonely, and for my opinion, it could have been really interesting. This was probably in an older script, and Sega forgot to cut it out, and for my opinion, it could have had cool things with Infinite's character. I would imagine that Sonic and the custom character could have saved Infinite, but it was probably cut out. I am not gonna talk about everything that is Virgil from the DMC series, and you should play the games yourself. If Infinite had similar character development like Virgil, it could be really interesting for his character. Imagine that Infinite would do anything just to get strength and power, so he would sacrifice everything that resembles his old self. We don't know why Infinite wants to have strength and power and doesn't like being weak. Infinite's inferiority complex maybe happens before he met Shadow. That sad tragedy part of Infinite's character, it is literally within his song. I wish that Sonic Forces explored more of Infinite's arrogant nature, and it would have been cool. If Sega developed Infinite's character right, a lot of Sonic fans would love Infinite. With the idea of Infinite's revenge, Infinite would get revenge on Sonic and Shadow. Infinite would be stronger compared to the one from Sonic Forces, all because the Phantom Ruby's energy merges with his body. Even though the Phantom Ruby might be gone, Infinite would do anything just to destroy Sonic and Shadow. Infinite would use the powers of null space, and he would turn his body into a monster. If Infinite turns into a kaiju monster, it would be a really cool reference to the early 2000s Sonic games. I think that if Sega does an Infinite DLC, it would only focus on Sonic and Shadow. I would imagine if Sega does this DLC, Silver or Knuckles won't be playable in this DLC. Silver I would want to be playable, but I don't think it would happen. Knuckles and Silver did a little bit more things in the story of Sonic Forces compared to the other characters, but Knuckles and Silver were still sidelined in Sonic Forces' story. Silver fought against Infinite, while Knuckles led the Resistance group. Having a cool storyline with Silver that he wants to get revenge from Infinite defeating him, it would be cool. I would want Sega to reuse the custom characters' music for Knuckles and Silver. The custom characters' music, it is about being a new hope for the world and fighting for a better future. Even though I would want Knuckles and Silver to be playable, it is up to Sega. Let's get back on talking about Infinite. Since Infinite is inspired off of Darth Vader, he should have parallels like Vader. Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars is a sad and tragic character, and what happens that turns him evil? Anakin has a lot of sad circumstances that eventually turns him evil. Anakin, when he is a teenager and adult, he can be reckless, cocky, and arrogant. Me talking about Anakin, it does have some parallels with Sonic. Unlike Sonic, Anakin has that inner darkness inside of him. Anakin being manipulated by Palpatine is what eventually turns him to the dark side. Since Sonic Forces was trying to make Eggman like Palpatine, let's lean into that more. I am not trying to say that Eggman would have powers like Palpatine, but his manipulation. In the Sonic Forces comic book with Dr. Eggman has that cool silhouette around his body. This comic book panel of Dr. Eggman hints of a betrayal later down the road in the future, and it is a cool scene. The Infinite DLC would dive down into Infinite's psyche and why he hates Shadow. Infinite would trap the whole world in null space, and it would be cool. Sonic and friends would be trapped in null space, so Sonic and Shadow would have no choice but to work together. Since Infinite would be more powerful in null space, he can alter space and time. In Sonic Mania, the Phantom Ruby was much different compared to Forces, and it can alter space and time. Infinite can create illusions, but manipulate space and time too. When going into null space, it would recreate levels in Sonic and Shadow's mind. It would be like Sonic Generations, but I would want the Infinite DLC to be better than Generations. When Infinite is mocking Sonic and Shadow, Infinite would alter reality in some of the stages, and it would be cool. When Infinite is warping reality in some of the stages, Infinite would tell Sonic and Shadow some of his backstories and his military background. I have a really cool idea that can fix the Sonic Forces scene with Shadow and Infinite. Since Sega wanted to do parallels with Shadow and Infinite, let's lean into that more and give him a Maria equivalent. This character would be a voice of reason for Infinite, and if anything happens to that character, Infinite would turn evil. This Maria-like equivalent, it could be the Jackal Squad or Infinite's brother. I think that Sonic Team would keep the idea of Shadow killing the Jackal Squad exactly like from Sonic Forces, but it should be a cutscene. I would do a little bit of a retcon of some scenes with Shadow and Infinite and Sonic Forces, just to fix their characters. And plus, nobody would care if I retcon Sonic Forces, all because it is an unfinished game. Shadow would get orders from Gun to hunt down and kill the Jackal Squad, but there's something off about the Gun Commander. Shadow would feel like there's something off about the Gun Commander, but he can't figure out what it is. The person that is giving Shadow the orders isn't the Gun Commander, but Dr. Eggman. Dr. Eggman would create a fake Abraham Towers in Shadow's mind and manipulate Shadow. Dr. Eggman would trick Shadow into hunting down the captain of the Jackal Squad's brother. Because the captain of the Jackal Squad lost his brother to Shadow, it would cause his hatred for Shadow. For my idea, this would take place before the comic events of Sonic Forces. Sonic Team wanted Shadow to be the cause of Infinite's downfall, and I would keep that original intention. The captain of the Jackal Squad would see Shadow killing his brother, and because of that, he would want revenge. The captain of the Jackal Squad would face off against Shadow, but he ultimately loses. You can say that Shadow is not acting like himself, and he's influenced by the Phantom Ruby. Infinite would create the Jackal Squad so he can get revenge on Shadow, and he would want the whole world to suffer. This event when Eggman encounters Infinite from the Sonic Forces comic book, this event won't change. Now I have to fix the Luminous forest scene with Infinite and Shadow. Dr. Eggman would trick Shadow into hunting down the Jackal Squad, and it would be a cool battle. After defeating the Jackal Squad, the fake Abraham Towers would give Shadow a mission. The mission would be about investigating the research facility on Dr. Eggman's top secret weapon. This would be a trap by Dr. Eggman so he can set up Infinite and Shadow. The cutscene where Shadow confronts Infinite, it would be mostly identical compared to the one from Sonic Forces, but it would be slightly different. Shadow would hunt down Infinite and try to kill him, but something comes out of Infinite's hands. It would be a pendant, and once the pendant hits the ground, it would show the picture of the Jackal Squad and his brother. When Shadow sees inside the pendant and slowly piece out the things that was happening with his missions, Shadow would realize that the Abraham Towers that he was talking to was not real, and he's been set up by Dr. Eggman. You can have this cutscene play out like in Sonic Forces, but I would add my own twist to it. Shadow would try to leave Infinite all because he feels bad for him, but Dr. Eggman would use the power of the Phantom Ruby to trick Infinite. This Phantom Ruby illusion on what Infinite is seeing, it is a fake Shadow. This fake Shadow would use the exact same words that Shadow says from Forces to Infinite. My ideas and rewrites of Sonic Forces' story, it won't change that much of the game's story, but it would fix a few issues. Infinite without the mask hating Shadow more, this would be the start of the Infinite DLC. Infinite won't know the complete reason why Shadow hunts down his Jackal Squad or his brother. What matters to Infinite, it is getting revenge. There would be only 3 characters that Infinite hates the most. It would be Sonic, Shadow, and Dr. Eggman. Dr. Eggman won't be the main villain for Infinite's revenge, all because Infinite would want him to suffer. Infinite would use the Phantom Ruby's illusions just to mess with Dr. Eggman's mind, and it would be really cool. Sonic and Shadow, of course, would save Dr. Eggman, and Dr. Eggman has no choice but to work with them. Would Shadow kill the captain of the Jackal Squad, or would Sonic get in his way? For my idea, this would create fun interactions and drama between Sonic and Shadow, and it would be cool. I think that Sonic would save Infinite, even though Infinite did a lot of harm to him in Forces, and that is Sonic's character. Sonic would try to reach out and save Infinite, but Infinite would be too far gone. The only character that would reach out and save Infinite, it would be Shadow. Because Infinite and Shadow would have similar trauma with each other, he would save Infinite, but it won't be immediately. Once Shadow figures out that Infinite is the captain of the Jackal Squad, he would save Infinite. Infinite's revenge would have a positive message on not being consumed by revenge, and this message would be good for kids. If Sega wants Sonic and Shadow to save Infinite from his own trauma, I would let them decide. I wish that Infinite could have fit the theme of Sonic Forces, and it is such a letdown. I would ask you guys this. Do you know what the main theme of Sonic Forces is? We all like the roast this game story, but we can't figure out what the main theme is. Sonic Forces does have a main theme, but it is not executed that well. The whole entire idea and main theme of Sonic Forces, that war can negatively affect the people that are around you and your environment. The Sonic characters are telling you what Eggman is doing is awful, or even bad. The game is telling you what Eggman is doing with the events of the war is awful and bad, but the problem is, the game doesn't show you. The Resistance wants to fight for a better future, while Dr. Eggman and Infinite, they're trying to use the war to manipulate and control others. Infinite wants to create a world where the strongest overpowers the weak, and doesn't care what would happen to the world. With the theme of Sonic Forces, Infinite was nothing more than a pawn to Eggman. Both characters don't really care what harms they would do from the tragedy of war they inflict on others and the environment around them. I would say that Sonic Battle executed the whole idea of war being bad better than Forces. In Shadow Generations, when you go through Sunset Heights, the town is partially destroyed, but once you go to Act 2, it gets even worse. I wish that we could have had NPCs and Forces that matches the theme of the game. You can have Sunset Heights at the normal Sonic Town before the events of the war with Eggman, but after the war, the town regresses. Maybe Forces could have had NPCs that match the theme of the game, and so lots of the NPCs wouldn't help you, all because they're too afraid of dying. Maybe if you helped out NPCs or other Sonic characters, they would participate in the war and fight against Eggman. That is what the whole fist bump music in Sonic Forces is about, working together to overcome the odds. Look at the concept art of Sunset Heights. When you go through the town over and over again, it gets more and more destroyed. I mean, for heck's sakes, even franchises like Transformers, or even Avatar: The Last Airbender, handles the idea that war is a bad thing in these kids shows. Should you give in to anger or hatred all because somebody hurt you from your past? Or you should mold or shape a better future with your friends and allies around you. Look at the E3 trailer of Sonic Forces. You see modern Sonic looking angry, and I wish that could have been Forces Sonic. Modern Sonic could have regressed from the Sonic we used to know and love, and that could have been interesting. Sega and Sonic Team could have made a war-themed Sonic game good, but the problem with Forces, it is not executed that well. This is why I retconned Infinite's backstory to match the theme of Forces. I don't have anything else to say on what story I would want in an Infinite DLC. Let's transition into gameplay. I have some good ideas when Sonic and Shadow works together with their gameplay mechanics for the Infinite DLC. In every 2 stages, Sonic and Shadow would work together with their gameplay mechanics. You can switch between the 2 characters and uses their abilities. How would you switch between the 2 characters? For my idea, Sonic Team should use the D-pad. Sonic and Shadow would get a team homing attack, but gameplay-wise, it would work like a normal homing attack. Because Sonic doesn't have Chaos Control, he would refill his boost meter by killing enemies. Filling up Sonic's boost meter by killing enemies, it would be like the original generations, and that won't change. Sonic's air boost, it would reach a little bit further than Shadow's, and last a little bit longer. I would want Sonic's normal boost speed to be faster than Shadow, but I think that Sonic Team would make their boost speeds the same. For modern Sonic, I would want to get rid of the drift. Instead of the drift, he would get the drop dash and spin dash. The Sonic Frontier Spin Dash, it is fun, but broken. If Sega wants to port over the Frontier Spin Dash, it should be nerfed. I would want the Spin Dash to be faster than the boost, but it should take a little bit longer to recharge. Sonic Team needs to nerf the Spin Dash from Sonic Frontiers into Sonic X Shadow generations. When you launch yourself into the air with the Spin Dash, it is pretty overpowered and broken. I hope that modern Sonic Spin Dash would be fun in the generations. I would like the drop dash to travel a little bit faster compared to Frontiers. Shadow's Doom abilities would probably come back, all because Sega would really want to reuse assets for the Doom abilities. The easiest excuse that I would come up with Sonic Team, Shadow would be affected by the powers of null space, and it would give him his Doom abilities back. Since Shadow would get his Doom abilities back in null space, they're fake imitations, so Black Doom won't take over his body. Gameplay-wise, the Doom abilities would work exactly like in Shadow Generations, with no differences. When Shadow would get his Doom abilities back, Sonic would get his Cyber abilities back. Sonic would use his Psy Loop in his gameplay, and it would be cool. Sonic would use the Psy Loop for switches like in Sonic Frontiers, and it would be a fun mechanic. If Sega wants to do Cyber Supersonic versus Infinite, it would be awesome. Some people wanted to play Cyber Corrupt Supersonic and wants to play him. Since this is the Infinite DLC and Sonic would get his cyber powers back, and it would be a nice way to finish off the game. Shadow would also help in the boss fight, but he would combine his Doom abilities with his super transformation. I hope that Sonic Team would add a new super transformation for Shadow. I would want Sonic and Shadow to have Mach Speed sections when they work together. The Mach Speed sections in Sonic Forces, the reason why it was bad, it was too short. To think about it, the Mach Speed sections in Sonic Forces, it is not the worst Mach Speed sections in the series. In Sonic 06, the reason why a lot of Sonic fans hate the Mach Speed sections, it is because it controls bad. In Sonic Lost Worlds, the Mach Speed sections doesn't control bad, but the problem with the Mach Speed sections, it moves slower than the Spin Dash. Sonic Forces does has a better Mach Speed section, all because you move faster, and the problem with Forces Mach Speed sections, it is too short. If Sonic's Forces Mach Speed sections were polished and harder, the Forces Mach Speed sections, it could be the best in the series. Sega does need to make Forces Mach Speed sections longer in Generations, and then it would be golden. My idea to fix the Mach Speed sections in Generations, it is to have an option to speed up and to slow down. When going into a Mach Speed section in Sonic X Shadow Generations, you would move at the Mach speed of Sonic Forces. When you go fast with the Mach Speed section, you would click on the boost button. The boost gauge would be unlimited until the Mach Speed sections are over. When not clicking on the boost button, you would still do an auto run, but you would move slower. The controls and the Mach Speed sections won't be exactly like from Sonic 4, but Sega should take some inspirations from Sonic 4. I am done talking about gameplay I would want for the Infinite DLC. Let's talk about collectibles. With collectibles, Sega should add the moon rings and the number rings. Shadow can use his chaos control to freeze the moon rings and the number rings in place. When you collect all the collectibles, you would get concept art and more music. Sega should add concept art of forces, all because it wasn't in Shadow Gens. The only thing that was there in the art gallery of Shadow Generations, it is a poster of forces, but it doesn't have Shadow in it. Sonic Team should have added the episode Shadow posters and puts them into Sonic X Shadow Generations. I feel bad for the Forces fans that want more concept art of Forces, and there isn't more concept art of Forces into Sonic X Shadow Generations. It is like how Sonic Team screwed up the timeline placement in Shadow Generations. If you look at the timeline placement of Shadow Generations, Sonic Team put Shadow the Hedgehog before Sonic Heroes. I don't know how Sonic Team screwed this up, all because Sonic Heroes, it takes place before Shadow the Hedgehog. I hope that Sonic Team would fix the timeline in Sonic X Shadow Generations. A new collectible I would add in Sonic X Shadow Generations, it would be saving a soldier from forces. When saving a soldier, it would be like a flicky rescue mission from Sonic Frontiers. When saving a soldier, your jump would be reduced, and you have to do a platforming section. You would have to take a soldier to a certain location just to finish the rescue mission. When rescuing a soldier, it could be a soldier from the resistance group or gun. After rescuing a soldier, they would give you a note to a journal. When Sonic or Shadow would receive this note, it would tell you the lore within Sonic Forces, and it would be cool. If Sonic X Shadow Generations has a journal to fill in the gaps with Force's story, it would be cool. There is a lot of things we don't know about the lore of Sonic Forces. What island is Sunset Heights on? And it is a big mystery. Does the Resistance base take place on South Island or a different island entirely? I would give you an answer. Sonic Team didn't care about the lore of Sonic games in the meta era. You have Green Hill Zone in a continent rather than in South Island. The whole reason why there is a lore team within Sonic now, all because the inconsistencies within Sonic. I would want Sunset Heights to take place on a different island rather than in South Island. The whole entire idea of Sonic games that you explore different regions and new locations. I would want Sega to give the island a name like Dawn Island. I don't care what name Sega would give the island, but I hope that Sunset Heights would take place on a different island. The easiest way for Sega to get rid of the inconsistencies of Forces, it can be tied with the Phantom Ruby. During the events of Sonic Forces, Infinite can use the power of the Phantom Ruby to combine all the land masses together. Because Infinite is combining all the land masses together, it could mess with time and space. Infinite, with my idea, he can combine all the land masses together from different eras of time into one timeline. Sega was trying to make Forces into a pseudo-like Generations, but it failed. I got this idea from Sonic Mania when Eggman took Sonic and Friends into different eras of time with the Phantom Ruby. With my idea, it has a lot of story potential. Like, for example, Capital City, it could be from Silver's future. Because the Phantom Ruby is distorting time and space, it could be from any point of time. Because Silver's City would be gone from his own timeline. Silver would feel like that his future would be in danger, and it could tie in within the Forces comic book. Since Sega was trying to make Capital City inspired off of Eldaron from Star Wars, the Resistance would get their weapons from Capital City and their spaceships. Even though I made up a few examples, there is a lot of story possibilities you can do with the Phantom Ruby. Within a lore book of Sonic Forces, into Sonic X Shadow Generations, Sega can easily explain how the Resistance was created, and it would be a fun lore book. If Sega wants to do an Infinite journal that dives down into Infinite Psyche, it would be cool. I am done talking about collectibles. Let's transition into stages. For stages, I won't be talking about classic Sonic that much, all because he's not important to Infinite. Who is important to Infinite? It is modern Sonic and Shadow. Sega would probably add classic Sonic anyway, all because it is Generations. I would add restrictions for the stages I would pick in Sonic X Shadow Generations. This would be restriction 1. Most of the stages that I would pick, it has to be tied to Sonic and Shadow. I have to pick stages from the games that Sonic and Shadow are in, and it would be a fun challenge. Sonic and Shadow would have some stages that is unique to their characters for my list, but that is it. The level design for Sonic and Shadow and Generations, it should take some inspiration from Sonic Free and Knuckles, but in 3D. The level design should be like Kingdom Valley and Chaos Island. Kingdom Valley has a lot of alternate pathways that you can traverse, and it is the best level in Generations. I would want Sonic and Shadow to have alternate pathways in the levels that is unique to their characters, and it would be cool. This would be restriction 2. Some of the stages needs to have war-themed backgrounds. Since Sonic Forces was trying to be a war-based game, the stages need to have war-based backgrounds. I can do a bit of deviations for not all of the stages to have war-themed backgrounds. Since it is the Phantom Ruby, it can create anything that is imaginary into reality. The first stage I would pick, it would be Sunset Heights, but the prototype version. The prototype version of Sunset Heights, it looks similar to that of Rooftop Run, but it has some differences. Sega would probably give this version of Sunset Heights a different name, since it is their prototype version. Sonic Team should reuse some assets from Rooftop Run into Sunset Heights. The level design of this prototype Sunset Heights, it should not be exactly like Rooftop Run, and I would want it to feel different. This prototype Sunset Heights has a castle-like background for the stage, and it does look cool. I think that the Jackal Squad should be a boss fight with this version of Sunset Heights. The second stage that I would pick, it would be Prison Island. Prison Island, it would make sense for Shadow, all because Shadow was first introduced in this location. Sega should combine all the acts of Prison Island into one stage. I think that Sega would do Green Forest well in Sonic X Shadow Generations, all because they recreated Green Forest in Sonic Frontiers. Sonic Frontiers recreated Green Forest in cyberspace. If Sega does Prison Island in Generations, I would want it to be greatly improved compared to the Frontiers version. I hope that Prison Island, it would be a really fun stage in Sonic X Shadow Generations. The next stage that I would pick, it would be Hang Castle. Hang Castle, it would be a really good stage for Sonic and Shadow, and I hope that Act 2 of Hang Castle would be Mystic Mansion. Since Infinite was originally supposed to be based on a ghost, Hang Castle would be good for Infinite. You can still do the gravity gimmick of hanging upside down, and it would be cool. If Infinite warps Hang Castle, it would be cool. And I would also want a transitional stage to Hang Castle. This transitional stage, it would be Egg Fleet. Egg Fleet, it is the stage that a lot of Sonic fans wanted in Generations, and I hope that Egg Fleet would be a good stage. The boss fight I would pick from the Heroes era, it would be the Egg Emperor. Since Shadow doesn't have a boss fight with Dr. Eggman, it would be with the Egg Emperor. In Sonic Heroes, the Eggman that you're facing wasn't real. It was Metal Sonic in disguise. Sonic and Shadow would think this is the real Dr. Eggman, but it is an illusion. With my idea, this would be a really cool callback to Sonic Heroes. The Doom Morph and the Doom Wings, they would count as alternate versions of the Flying Formation. In Sonic Heroes, you can beat the Egg Emperor by doing Thundershoot. When Thundershoot is at level 2 or level 3, it is the most broken ability in Heroes. Shadow's Doom Blast, it would count as an alternate Thundershoot, but it won't be nearly as broken. The Doom Blast would open up the Egg Emperor's weak point, and once you use Doom Blast, it would be fun to pull off. Doom Blast only works for the Black Arms, but there would only be one exception for Doom Blast to work again. When you use Doom Blast on the E-Series 2000 robots, it would work against the Egg Emperor. I am done talking about the adventure era of Sonic games. Let's transition into the Dark Age era. There were a lot of Sonic fans that wanted a Shadow the Hedgehog stage in Generations, but it never happened. The stage I would pick from Shadow the Hedgehog, it would be Gun Fortress. Gun Fortress, it would be an easier stage for Sega to make in Shadow Generations, all because of the movie DLC pack. Gun Fortress, it would be a really good stage for Shadow, all because in Shadow the Hedgehog, there is a war faction between Gun and the Black Arms. All Sega needs to do, they can reuse the Shadow movie DLC assets into Gun Fortress. Sonic Team can reuse the gun base in the movie DLC pack for Gun Fortress. When Infinite would warp reality in Gun Fortress, he would take you to Black Comet. It won't be the actual gun soldiers or Black Arms. It would be illusions created by Infinite. The boss fight that I would pick from Shadow the Hedgehog, it would be the Gun Commander and Sonic. A lot of Sonic fans wanted a Sonic boss fight in Shadow Generations, but it never happened. Having a boss fight with a fake Sonic and the Gun Commander, it would be cool. I am done talking about Shadow the Hedgehog. Let's talk about Sonic 06. The stage I would pick from Sonic 06, it would be Dusty Desert. Since Infinite was based on the Egyptian god Anubis, this stage would fit Infinite perfectly. Dusty Desert would be a fun stage in Shadow Generations, and I would want it in the game. This stage would be from Sonic and the Secret Rings. It would be Night Palace. Since Sonic and the Secret Rings are storybook games, and they're fictional storybooks, it would fit for a DLC stage. Night Palace, it would be a very important stage for Sonic, all because he faced a Razor Jin in this stage and defeated him. Night Palace would be a really awesome stage, and I do like the section when you go on the magic carpet. Razor Jin with his genie powers, he can alter Night Palace whatever he chooses to, and it would be a fun mechanic. Razor Jin should be a boss fight for Sonic, and Razor Jin, he would represent the storybook games in Sonic's playthrough. Another reason why I want Night Palace, it is because of the CGI cutscenes. Whoever saw the CGI scenes in Sonic and the Secret Rings, it does take place in Night Palace. I don't really need to explain how good these CGI scenes are in Secret Rings, and you guys should watch them yourselves. This stage would be from Sonic and the Black Knight. It would be Deep Woods. Deep Woods is where Sonic fought Lancelot, and it is a cool cutscene. When you go to Act 1 of Deep Woods, it would be a forest, but Act 2, it would be different. When you go to Act 2, it would be the Shire Woods. In Sonic and the Black Knight, the Deep Woods and the Shire Woods are near the same location. The Shire Woods would be a harder version of Deep Woods, and it would be cool. When Shadow goes into the world of Sonic and the Black Knight, he would have Lancelot's armor and sword. Shadow won't understand why he's wearing Lancelot's armor, and it should be a funny joke. The story excuse would be this. Since Null Space would recreate levels in Sonic and Shadow's mind, Sonic and Shadow would have levels that they're not familiar with. Even though Deep Woods would be recreated from Sonic's memories, it would be created by Infinite. I would want Sonic Team to modify Shadow's Doom Blast for him using his sword. If Sonic Team wants to do a King Arthur boss fight for Shadow, it would be really amazing. I am done talking about the storybook games. Let's transition into Sonic Mania. The level I would pick from Sonic Mania, it would be Titanic Monarch. Titanic Monarch, it would be a really fun stage for classic Sonic, and I would want Titanic Monarch in Generations. Titanic Monarch, it is like classic Sonic's version of Eggman Land, and Titanic Monarch, it is a hard stage. I do like Titanic Monarch warping you into different locations, and it would be a fun mechanic. The boss fight that I would pick from Sonic Mania, it is the Hard Boil Heavies. I am done talking about Sonic Mania. Let's talk about Sonic Forces. The two stages that I would pick from Forces, it is the Death Egg and the Eggman Empire Fortress. The Death Egg is part of Sky Century's background, and I wish that the Death Egg could have been a stage in Generations. The different version of the Death Egg I would pick, it would be Egg Gate. This Sonic Forces level had a potential to be good, but the problem with Egg Gate, it is way too short. There is an annoying quick time event with the Death Egg, and it wastes 30 seconds of your time, and it is really annoying. There is a fleet of spaceships in Egg Gate, but the problem is, you don't go on a spaceship fleet. Sonic Forces Overclocked has made a better version of Egg Gate, and it does look awesome. Even though this version of Egg Gate is made by the Duck Dealer and his team, I hope that Sonic Team would make their new version of Egg Gate like Forces Overclocked. For my idea, when you go to Act 2 of Egg Gate, it would be completely destroyed. The destroyed Death Egg was on the map of Sonic Forces, and I wish that it was a playable stage. I would want Egg Gates to be a fully realized level in Sonic X Shadow Generations. The Eggman Empire Fortress, it would be the final level for the Infinite DLC, and it would be a cool stage. All the Sonic characters fought Infinite and his army in this level. With the Eggman Empire Fortress, it would be the hardest level in the game, and the Eggman Empire Fortress, it should be a fun level. Classic Sonic's boss fights from Sonic Forces, it would be Chaos Zero. A lot of classic fans wanted Chaos Zero as a boss fight in Sonic Forces, but it never happened. I hope that Chaos would be a really fun boss fight for classic Sonic. The boss fights from Sonic Forces that I would pick for modern Sonic, it would be the Death Egg Robot. The Death Egg Robot, it is the best boss fight in Sonic Forces, and it is a fun boss fight. Sega can make this boss fight into a modern Sonic boss fight and a classic Sonic boss fight. I hope that the classic Sonic sections of the Death Egg Robot would be greatly improved compared to the Forces version. The next stage, it would be from Frontiers. It would be Aranos Island. Kronos, Aranos, and Renoa, all three should be one island in Sonic X Shadow Generations. All three of the islands that I mentioned, they were all originally one island before Sonic Team divided them. I do like climbing up the towers from the Final Horizon update in Aranos Island. I hope that Sonic Team would improve on climbing up the towers from the Final Horizon update into Sonic X Shadow Generations. When you're on any of the free islands and Generations, you would get teleported into cyberspace. The cyberspace level that I would pick, it would be the Cyber Highway levels in Frontiers. I hope that the cyberspace level from Aranos Island would be really good. The next stage I would pick, it would be Cyber Station from Superstars. I would want Cyber Station to be in Sonic X Shadow Generations, and Cyber Station, it would be a really awesome stage. If we can get pixelated modern Sonic and Shadow, it would look really cool. This would be the stage from Sonic Dream Team. It would be Scramble Shores and Shattered Dreams. Shattered Dreams would be a really good stage for Shadow, and it would be within Shadow's mind. I do like the red crescent moon, and it does look awesome. And I hope that the red crescent moon would be in Sonic X Shadow Generations. Scramble Shores, it would be a really good stage for Sonic in Sonic X Shadow Generations. I do like the beach theme of Scramble Shores, and it does look spectacular. I don't have anything else to say about Sonic X Shadow Generations. I think this would be a good point to end the video. Thank you for watching this video. Like, share, subscribe, but also leave a comment below if you guys really want to see more of my content. Anyway, see you guys soon.